honestly happily sit and watch that again. Maybe not this afternoon. I think this afternoon I might give Ludwig a go.
Yeah,
slightly more.
Leslie Nielsen rather than Dennis Nielsen. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God! I really want that in a T-shirt. That would be fab.
Good morning, Vietnam!
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel need for speed.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads. Snakes. What happened with snakes?
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Batman. I am the Father.
So, do you want to go through what you've been watching, reading, seeing?
Yeah,
consuming?
sure. Of course, yep. I'll start with the TV stuff first.
Sure.
What I've been watching. I watched Supercell on Netflix. It's a 6-part, almost like superhero origin story, and it's about this. It's like the Black British community, and these people start getting superpowers that they don't know how or where they've come from, and it's all got to do with the fact that their families have a history of sickle cell disease, but not them particularly. For some reason they haven't. Apparently with Black people they're more likely to get sickle cell disease than certain other groups, and this is all based around that there's something going on with the fact that these people had it and they were treated, and their offspring and their cousins and stuff start to get these things. And it's all a bit, there's a wee bit of sort of timey-wimey stuff in it and things like that as well, and going back and trying to save the girlfriend of one of the main sort of characters in it. And it's really good. And apparently it's Guy Rapman who wrote it, and he has written it with a view from the start. He said, I want this to be 3 seasons of this, and it's like 6 episodes each, so it's not like a great sort of commitment that people have to make to it, and it's been really, really popular as well. So the first, and it's like 40 minutes each, 30-40 minutes at the most, so it really sort of whizzes along, and it's excellent. It was really, really good. Really enjoyed that. That was a wee bit of a surprise, because I just seen it pop up on the you may like watch, may like seeing this, the old algorithm in action, so that worked quite well. Finished off watching For Those About to Die, the Roman Sir Anthony Hopkins thing, which was okay. It was all right. It's clearly aimed at cashing in on the likes of Gladiator 2, which is coming out obviously towards the end of the year, and like the whole Game of Thrones thing and all that as well. And it was okay. A lot of CG in it for the Colosseum.
Good CG? Good CG, or?
Well, it's noticeable, put it that way. But they got in before Gladiator 2 in that they filled up the Colosseum with water and had boats. And they had so there's that. And it actually looks quite good. It actually looks reasonably realistic, because it looks a bit shonky, and you would imagine that actually seeing like boats floating, and it wouldn't be like full-size sailing vessels or anything. They would be just sort of like mock-ups of them, and it did kind of look that, and you're kind of thinking, yeah, that would be accurate, because it wouldn't be sort of this grand spectacular as if you've got a schooner coming into. But yeah, that seemed to work quite well. It was a bit daft, but it was okay. I quite liked it. It was quite enjoyable as well. Obviously, Frasier is still on Paramount Plus as well. We started the 2nd season of that. That's really good. It's still, the quality of writing is really high in that, so it's very enjoyable. So I'm still enjoying that. Watched Daddy Issues, the BBC One comedy about the young girl who finds out she's pregnant after having sex with a man in the toilets of the aeroplane that she was coming back from holiday in, and she's forced to go and live with her father, who is David Morrissey in this, playing totally against type. He is basically this. He's almost like a childlike man. He's so naive, and he's just stupid. But he's got quite a good heart about him and everything as well. But the comedy comes from the fact that she's actually the adult in the relationship as opposed to him. So yeah, that works really well. It's quite nice, and there's sort of good supporting characters in it as well. So it's quite funny. Again, 6 episodes, 30 minutes. Can't knock it. It's one of the better comedies I've seen for a while. Watched Gen V as well. spin-off for the
yeah.
boys. I hadn't seen that, and I watched that maybe in the space of about 2 days because it was
Oh, wow.
it was
All right,
really,
okay.
really good. You know, I remembered you and Simi talking about it in between like series of the boys because I haven't seen the last series of the boys yet either, so I'm going to move on to that next. But I watched that
We'll
and I
let
was
you know
really
what you
impressed.
think of that, because that will
Yeah.
be. Simi and I have quite similar thoughts on this as well, so it'll be interesting to see if you feel the same way.
Yeah, but Gen V was fairly decent. It's a slightly different slant on the stories as well, you know, in terms of the boys. Obviously, still got a lot of the same background, but I kind of liked the way that played out, and it was good. Enjoyed it. Some pretty gory, good action in it as well, which is always good fun. Just I started watching the Discovery of Witches as well, which I'd seen wee clips of it on, you know how you get these Facebook reels and there's all these clips. It's like Matthew Good, he's a vampire in it, and there's all
Ooh.
these witches. It's like
Ooh.
3 seasons of it.
You just sold me in 2 sentences, Matthew Good playing a vampire.
Yeah, it's obviously a story about like the vampires are unable to turn people anymore, and they don't know why, and they're trying to find out why. And there's this ancient book which is in one of the libraries at Oxford University that has been missing for centuries. No one can find it. And then this researcher comes in and she requests the book just because she's doing research and all sorts of like medieval lore and all this. But she happens to be a witch as well, but she's not part of any coven or anything. She wants to be completely separated from it. She doesn't like it and all that. And she requests the book just as part of her materials, not knowing it, and she somehow gets the book and figures out there's magic involved, and she doesn't want anything to do with that either. And of course, then it's like witches and vampires all trying to persuade her to get this book out again so that they can figure out what's good. The vampires want it for their own survival. The witches want it because apparently the witches created vampires in the first place, and they want to know how to kill them off. So I've just seen a couple of episodes of it, but it's just fairly decent stuff. Apparently, it's based on a book trilogy, which I'd never read either, but it's quite interesting.
I've not read it because fantasy things kind of aren't really my thing, like for reading, certainly. But I think I have seen like a wee display of that in Waterstones or something.
Yeah, and the last TV thing is Ludwig, which is a nice, cozy
I'm
Agatha
desperate to watch
Christie.
this.
It's good. It's really good. David Mitchell is very good in it. I won't tell you too much about it. He in this is he's a detective and he's solving crimes. But he's also a puzzle setter as well. Ludwig is his pen name for his puzzles. He uses a lot of logic. Now there's a whole other story there, which I won't spoil for you because you should find out yourself, obviously, if you want to watch it. But it is kind of that sort of. It's the same sort of level as they all see all these daytime murder mystery things that are all nice and cozy, like Midsummer Murders and all that. Well, I suppose that's sort of peak time ITV, but there's like Father Brown mysteries and all that sort of stuff that they're on in the afternoon. It's that kind of thing. It's kind of nice, like almost modern Agatha Christie kind of things without any bite to them. So it is kind of cozy and everything. And it's set in Cambridge as well. So, there's all sorts of like calls to other things or other types of these sort of detective programs. But it's good. It's actually really enjoyable, and it's a pretty nice TV show. I would definitely recommend that. That's just on just now as well. I think there's like 3 or 4 episodes, but it's all on iPlayer as well. So we've just been piling through those because it's something that you don't need to totally focus on at all times. And it's always nice to guess who the killer is because it's one of these, you're wondering why I've gathered all of you together. At the end, it's always the same.
I
kind
love
of idea.
that.
Yeah. So movie-wise, I watched the Final Destination series primarily because I saw they were on Prime and they were just about to leave Prime. So I thought, why not? I'll give them a go. So I watched 1, 2, and 3, and 5. 4 wasn't available. 4 wasn't available on the service, but I don't think I really missed very much. 1 is really good. The premise of this 5 people, it's a group, I think it was 7 people. They don't go on, the first one, they don't go on a plane because one of them has a premonition that they're all going to die. And he gets thrown off the plane and some of the other people go off with him because they're trying to calm him down and stuff. Plane goes away, boom, blows up. So they work out that they were all supposed to die on this plane, so therefore death is tracking them one by one, depending on where they were sitting in the plane. And it's fairly decent. It's okay. It's a fairly enjoyable film. But 2 and 3 just follow the same pattern, except it's slightly different. I think 3 is set on a theme park. It's a roller coaster that goes wrong, and so it's a bit of okay, fair enough. But 5 is actually really good as well, and there's a nice wee twist with 5 as well, which kind of sort of sets it apart from the other ones as well. So that I kind of like that. It was okay, but I say usually it's the usual thing with these sort of horror franchises. It's the sort of law of diminishing returns. It just gets a wee bit worse and worse, and then suddenly you get something that they bring in a filmmaker and they say, well, what can you do with this? And say, well, I'll try something a wee bit different, and it works, and it sort of revitalizes it. But there's not been any more films since 5, so I think it's kind of dead until the next time. I
was going to say, I think you've just jinxed things. I think you've just brought Final Destination back into the conversation.
And they did that weird thing, I think, that they did with the Scream films as well. They did Final Destination, then Final Destination 2, 3, and then for the 4th one, they called it The Final Destination. And then they called Final Destination 5, whereas with Scream, they did that. I think it was with 5 or 6. They called it Scream again rather than like Scream 6 or something. You're going, what the hell are you doing? And then just went back to numbering them after that as well. So sort of Fast and Furious thing as well, because obviously they did that 1 and 2, and then Tokyo Drift, and then 4.
Yeah.
What happened there?
I'm still upset that they didn't do like Fast 10.
Yeah,
as in, like,
I know.
Fast, and as opposed to what was it? It's just called X.
Yeah, Fast X, yeah. Aye.
Yeah.
But who knows? Who can get inside the mind of Vin Diesel? Let's face it. What else did I watch? I watched a 1960s film called The Killers, which was a remake of a 1940s film. 2 hitmen turn up at a school for the deaf, I think it is, in order to kill one of the teachers, and instead of the teacher running away, he just completely accepts his fate. Just stands there while they shoot him dead, and they're trying to figure out why they stood there and just took it. And there was a whole thing about like a whole pile of money that he stole, and where did that money disappear to? And it's the sort of story surrounding that, and it's Lee Marvin is one of the killers in it, and John Cassavetes is the guy that they killed, and he was a racing driver and stuff. And Angie Dickinson is in it as well as John Cassavetes' lover, and she's sort of almost like a femme fatale in it as well. So it's a pretty decent wee film. It was made in the 60s as well. I think it was Burt Lancaster was the guy who got killed in it, in the 1940s film of it. So it was a good wee film. It's based on an Ernest Hemingway story, apparently. Right. So, yeah, it's all good stuff. I saw Speaking of Evil. I don't know if you've seen that yet.
The remake?
Yeah, the remake.
I haven't seen it. I think it's coming to on demand this month, so I might give it a watch just out of point of comparison, and also because James McAvoy is just so affable in every interview that you see him in, that's making me compelled to watch it because he's so nice.
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. I liked it. It was slightly different to the original. There are some obvious differences, but if you haven't seen the original, then you will enjoy it. If you have seen the original, yes, I think you'll still enjoy it because it's slightly different dynamics and slightly different performances from the leads in it.
What's interesting is I read an interview with the director of the original, whose name I can't remember, and he said, I don't know why they changed I don't know why they changed the ending in this remake, but that's Americans for you. And I thought, that's quite a pointed wee barb.
Well, yeah, but it's not unheard of, is it? That they change things for the thing. Oh, well, the audience we're pointing to won't like particular ending. I wasn't going to mention ending because I didn't know whether you'd read it, but obviously have, so that's fine.
Yeah,
that's all right. So The Critic as well, which is really, really good. Yeah, it was excellent. Yeah, it's Gemma Arterton and old Gandalf himself. So it was excellent, and it's about this critic who's in the 1930s, and he is like the power of life and death, like we've talked about.
Mhm.
If he condemns a play, then it just seems to die a death. And it's all about him losing his power in the face of new owners in his newspaper, and the Jim Arterton character, who is a decent jobbing actor, but she always gets really bad reviews from him, and she's trying to figure out why, and she engages with him and all that. And there's a whole other plot about what he will do for her if she does a certain
Mhm.
thing for him and all that. And it's really good. It's a nice sort of barbed drama. So Ian McKellen is just fantastic, and he's just really, really good as this aging, over the top critic. You know, he's one of these people who, it's almost like he's almost playing a part. He's playing as the critic, he's playing the part of the critic. So he's
Yeah,
overblown. Everything about him, even the way he eats his food and everything, it's just all, it's like just one of these performances you're going, yeah, really good. And it should have been seen by a lot more people than it was. But I think that's when it's going to sort of find a home on streaming
hopefully,
services as
because
well.
I do want to see it, because I've got all the London Film Festival stuff next week that I'm going to review and stuff like that, and I was kind of hoping that might make it up as well, but it's completely disappeared without a trace. So I really, really hope that I'll get to see it, because it's I don't want to say a cozy British drama, because it's not, but it's one of these sort of quintessential, like, do you know what I mean? It's got a good cast, solid story, and obviously, you know, the British theatre scene is sort of world renowned, and there have probably been critics who sort of made it or lost it for people. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
And I've seen other stuff as well, but I will finish off with The Union on Netflix, which is Mark Wahlberg and Halle Berry. It's an action drama film, and it's almost like a second tier Mission Impossible kind of film. He is plucked out of his job as a construction worker in New Jersey to work for the Union, which is this spy organization which is outside of the CIA, but they still work with the CIA. And you're kind of thinking, kind of heard this before, you know?
The IMF.
Yeah. So it's a wee bit like a sort of lesser Mission Impossible type film, and obviously the budget's a bit smaller, but we've had loads of these type of films that are they're made especially for streaming services, and they're sort of action films, and there's been quite a few of them over the last maybe couple of years with well-known names in them, and you can see that they're maybe looking to start franchises here with these, because with these type of films they're always open-ended at the end, so there's always the possibility of like 2 and 3 and all that, and some of them actually have had productions, like The Old Guard, for instance, which came out 2 years ago. There's a second film of that being made, so there's various ones out there that are the streaming services are looking to spend a bit of money on, but not spend hundreds of millions of
it's a cautious spend.
Yes, and it fills up an hour and 3/4 quite nicely, and it sort of rolled along, and there was lots of different, you know, it was like London and Croatia and all these sort of places, and obviously like the States as well. So it was perfectly fine. It was okay. It's been getting a bit of a kicking on sort of critical websites, which you can kind of understand, because it doesn't have a hell of a lot of ambition. And it is always funny when they do things in London, and it's always like you always see a red bus in the background and all
or the House of the Parliament or something, isn't it?
Yeah, and everything's filmed in these sort of muse locations and all this sort of stuff. So it is a wee bit like that, and the organisation's headquarters in London is the BT Tower. So so there is a bit of that, but it was fairly decent. It was okay, you know.
And I've seen
far worse.
What was that film that you watched? You watched it recently, and it was Vincent Cassel and Samuel L. Jackson.
Damaged.
Yeah.
Oh,
that was bad.
Did we talk about that before?
No, we haven't spoken about it, just in the chat.
Yeah. Damaged is a film that is set in Edinburgh, of all places.
Yes.
There's a serial killer who has got certain traits about him. His MO reflected a previous set of killings in Chicago, where Samuel L. Jackson was the lead detective investigating it, and Vincent Cassel was his partner there. And this is like maybe set 10 years later. Obviously, the Edinburgh police are wanting as much help as they can, so they pull in this cop from Chicago, Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, it's a wee bit different to him doing Warburton's adverts, but not much. And it's this sort of clash in the way that they do things and how they chase up suspects and all this kind of thing. And John Hannah's in it as well. And there's a variety of fairly dodgy Scottish accents, even though some of them actually are Scottish in it. And it's mince. Basically, it just really is. The fact that, you would think it would be elevated with Samuel L. Jackson and Vincent Cassel, but they've obviously just been offered a paycheck, or the producers have them in some compromising position with probably animals, I would imagine, if they got them to do this film. But yeah, it is a bit crazy, yeah.
I just remember you sending that poster through, and I was like, and all I could think was, it looks like two actors who've never actually spent any time together, because you so obviously photoshopped the two of them side by side. So yeah.
Yeah, and there's obviously, it's one of these films that there's obviously a few wee twists in it, and it would have been, if it was a better film, then you would be going, oh, a nice wee twist, but you're just kind of like, oh, come on, can you not just finish now? But Glutton for Punishment, I did watch it to the end, but no, it wasn't.
Amazon will be like, one viewer, yes.
Time for a sequel. More damaged. Yeah.
Oh dear, well, that's one to avoid.
So what about yourself? We've been watching?
A mixture of reading and watching stuff. So books wise, I've read Babylonia by Costanza Cassati, because I really like that Clytemnestra. So she takes sort of female historical figures who've either sort of been maligned or forgotten about, and she kind of rewrites their stories, which I really like. Her level of detail and it is excellent, and I feel like it feels sort of like legitimate. I know obviously it's fiction, but it feels very sort of authentic. Deliver Me by Elle Nash, which is that book that I sent you the picture of. It's only the second book where I've ever actually seen a trigger warning on the inside of it. But as I said to you both, the front cover is a woman eating a cockroach. So I wasn't exactly going into it thinking it was going to be quite light. I really enjoyed that as well. It was grim, but it was a really, really good read. And then Chris got me a couple of books. So it was Touch by Olaf Olafsson, which I believe has been made into a film about a elderly man who thinks he's got the onset of dementia. He's not sure. And he shuts up his restaurant in Reykjavik and decides to reach out to a woman who he had a sort of fling with when he was a young man living and working in London. And he travels to Japan during the pandemic to try and reconnect with her, but she's got COVID and she's very, very unwell. And it's a kind of nice sort of back and forward story where you get sort of snippets of him as a young man and snippets of him as a sort of older man reflecting on his life. So I really, really like that. And then I finished Beyond the Wall by Katja Heuer. She's a German historian, and she's written a book sort of just as the sort of GDR came into place, straight through to the end of its history, and just sort of offering different perspectives on sort of maybe why political decisions were made, how the population reacted to certain points of the Cold War. And it was really interesting because it felt a bit more personal. Like there was lots of kind of anecdotal stories in there as well, which I quite like. Film and television wise, I've been watching a lot of documentaries. So, I mean, brace yourselves for the titles of these. Things like America's New Female Right, which was absolutely terrifying because I don't understand women who actively vote against women's civil rights or human rights, but there's a huge swathe of them in America who are absolutely convinced that only men should have the vote and abortion should be banned and all this sort of thing. So that was quite scary. And then I watched Salmon and Sturgeon, A Troubled Union. So that was a 2-part documentary on basically the history of the SNP and the independence referendum and how they sort of fell out, which I thought was quite interesting as well. And then I watched Wise Guy, David Chase and The Sopranos. So that's a 2-part documentary on basically David Chase and how The Sopranos is made. And I really, really enjoyed that. There was great wee stories in there. Like they tell a story about Tony Sirico, who played Polly Walnuts, who's my favourite character, about how he refused to have his hair messed up And he basically got up hours before he was due on set to lightly mist it with hairspray and build it up till it was this sort of solid, cliff that he's got in the show. And there was like talking heads from like Michael Imperioli, Gia Di Matteo and stuff like that. It was lovely. It was a really nice wee reflection on the show, but obviously you kind of the absence Tony himself. So it was a really good watch. Definitely recommend it. Film wise, I watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit again. That was for the Well Good Movies podcast. And I swear to God, every time I watch that film, it just gets better and better. It's one of these films you always go back to. There's always a wee joke that you've missed somewhere. There's always a wee sort of, it's a fantastic watch. And I watched a TV series called All and Eva, which I believe is on Amazon through Viaplay. A wee 6-part series about a woman who, she's in her 40s. She decides she wants to have a child, and she sort of tracks down the sperm donor and kind of starts a relationship with him, but hasn't told him that she's pregnant yet. So over the 6 episodes, you get a glimpse of every single one of, there's Eva and there's 5 other people in her friendship group. So you get a sort of deep dive into their relationship over the 6 episodes. Wow. Really well done, sort of Fleabag-esque type of humour. There's lots of kind of looks to camera and going like, oh, sort of things. So I really liked it. It was really, really well done. Very good. And then I had to watch a couple of films for the Vampire Videos podcast. Dracula 2000, the less said about that, the better.
Yeah, it's not a good one, is it?
Christopher Plummer's Slavic accent really threw me in the opening minutes, and I didn't quite recover my sense of equilibrium after that. And then I also watched Vamp, which is a sort of mid-80s film with Grace Jones about frat boys who try to track down a stripper, and they end up in this nightclub called After Dark. And Grace Jones is a sort of headline act, and lo and behold, she's a vampire. The film itself is absolutely terrible, like a really, really bad film. But Grace Jones is brilliant in it, and the practical effects of turning her into that are really, really stand up. Like they were actually quite frightening, and her whole transformation, sort of, you see her sort of literally from toe to head sort of transform into this kind of demon, and it was really well done. I was quite impressed by that. But I mean, 90 minutes, it didn't kill me, but it wasn't the best film I've ever seen.
I've never heard of that at all, but it sounds quite interesting. Obviously, just
it's on Shudder.
Alone, yeah.
If your interest is piqued. As I say, it's only 90 minutes, so it won't kill you, but it's definitely one of these films where I'm not sure if it's meant to be like a sort of frat boy comedy or a body horror or a vampire film. It's sort of thrown everything at you, but yeah, I would say that the practical effects kind of stand up.
Nice. Oh, that sounds excellent. That's really good. You've been busy, obviously, as well as your trips abroad and everything. Yeah,
got some reading done on holiday and on the plane and stuff like that, which is always nice. We had a lovely wee balcony in the apartment, so it was nice just to get up in the morning and take a wee cup of tea out. And it was still very hot. It was like 26, 28, nice. Which for end of September is lovely. So, and it's not too hot that you're not sort of suffocating. But I would highly, highly recommend Budapest as a city. There's so much to do, lots of cool wee food places. We did a sort of underground kind of political street art tour, and there's so much to do. It's a really, really cool wee place. And they were filming something while we were there, and we don't know what it was, but there was loads of like crew and trucks and stuff like that outside the opera house. And then so I googled, and it said that Hungary is becoming like the second biggest destination in Europe for film crews. So it didn't answer my question as to what was being filmed, but then I was thinking Barbarian was filmed there, and not Prometheus, what's the film we just talked about? Romulus, yeah. Parts of that were shot in Hungary as well, so there must be quite an up-and-coming sort of industry there.
I think it's they do a lot with tax breaks and things like that as well to entice, because it used to be Prague. Prague was the place, because of the architecture in these places as well, because there's a lot of old worldy architecture, then they can lend itself to all sorts of different types of productions. So well,
I would definitely say that certainly there's, because we were saying this, there's certain sort of parts of Hungary where you're like, oh, this is just like Berlin, or this is just like Barcelona, or this is just like New York. So I was thinking maybe it's like they're using it sort of as a dupe for other locations.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the same way that George Square in Glasgow is doubled for Philadelphia, just because of the grid system and everything. And they just dressed it up and did a bit of CG to highlight the fact that it wasn't Glasgow. But you obviously, if you know the places that these films are, you can pick out wee bits in it. Yeah. Aye. Yeah. It's always the same. Obviously, we'll never get to see how Batgirl turned out because that was down at the Tron Gate and all that as well. So yeah, that would have been interesting. But that's the way it goes, I suppose.
We can look forward to Del Toro's Frankenstein because he's been in Glasgow and Edinburgh. So
Nice.
Scouting sufficiently gothic locations, I assume.
Yeah, maybe they've cleared away the rubbish as well, so that'd be good.
Let's not get too carried away.
Yeah. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Yeah.
Because I think the last couple of months this year, you do have some big heavy, like you've got your Gladiator, your Wicked, all that. So we do have some big films coming out.
Yeah.
Are you sold in Gladiator 2? Do you think that's going to be good?
I think it will. Yeah, I think might be more spectacle over substance, but I'd be quite happy with that. Just I think the people that are involved in it made me interested in it. You know, Paul Mescal, Denzel Washington. Yeah, what's not to like?
Yeah. Pedro. Do you know I didn't recognise that Joseph Quinn? Didn't realise that was him at all.
No,
From Stranger Things. It was only until I saw the name of the poster and I'm going, who's he playing? Then I went on IMDb and I was like, Jesus, the wig and the eyebrows just completely change his entire face.
Yeah. Yes, I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Do you know the trailers before The Substance? Fucking hell. It was Smile 2. I don't like creepy smiles. Terrifier 3. Absolutely get to fuck. I don't like clowns. And then Salem's Lot, which did kind of pique my interest. I thought, oh no, that might be quite good. So
all right.
Not Terrifier 3 then?
No. I haven't seen any of the Terrifier films. I've not seen 1 or 2 yet. So yeah, I know Simi has.
And that's not going to change. I think Chris has maybe seen one on. I think they're on Shudder, so I think he's maybe seen the first one and the second one. But I mean, is there much plot? It's just this fucking mental clown going about killing people.
Yeah, sounds about right.